Well, this is Rochambeau, and I just watched a video on a girl with a fentanyl overdose, and I want to make this video called overdoses. What are they like? They're horrible. Well, statistic: most people don't recover. Most people with an OD that I found out die. They don't get brain damage to survive. I mean, that's even more tragic. But they just usually die, and it's very sad. Let's see. One of my first overdoses that was, I mean, I had DXM overdoses, but one of my first very crazy, painful, terrible overdoses was from synthetic weed. It was Caution Diablo is what it was. I think it was actually salvia, but I remember listening to Love Buzz by Nirvana and then taking a huge hit, and then everything just started waving back and forth and shit, and apparently I fell back on my chair and like hit my head against the ground and started yelling and screaming unintelligibly, probably some like autism sounding shit. Because when the paramedics got there, they were like, "Is he always like this?" Like I was having a tantrum. But I fell back and got wrapped up in my guitar cable and was flailing and screaming. And in my mind, I was in another realm. I was in another universe to where I thought this was gonna be forever. I felt like I was there for hundreds and hundreds of years, like suffering, and I think there was human touch. Like, I think my dad or sister might have cradled me because I was very bad. I was wrapped up in a cable, like, choking myself on this shit. And my nerves and muscles, I remember I was spastic and throwing up and shit. They got to the ICU. I didn't know where I was. They said, "Where are you?" I said, "In a replacement room." They asked who the president was, and I said the name of the hospital. I was like, "It's Joe McLeod," or some shit. Spice overdoses are very bad. They can cause permanent brain damage, stroke, seizure. I've had brain damage. I've suffered many, many times. In 2017 especially, I remember a long stretch of suffering after huffing a lot of starter fluid and smoking synthetic weed and smoking weed off the streets and doing stimulants, Adderall, Benzodrex, Focalin, Ritalin, Wellbutrin, cocaine, all of this. And I'll be in my sister's room because she had gone off to college, and I'd be laying on the bed, and every little creak and all that, every little noise that was made, I thought it was resonating through the house, like I was being listened to by my parents, and I was paranoid the police would be called, the ambulance would be called because of all my overdose experiences. And I remember being extremely physically and mentally fucked, and being sitting and walking and being living and all this shit that was just terrible, and all these times that I just wished that it was all done, that I was gone. And the times that I hadn't had drugs back in the day before I really got really into drugs, the feeling that I didn't have drugs back even before when I started using drugs mainly was near death. It was the worst feeling I ever felt. I haven't felt anything like that in a long time. That was before I did drugs because I knew how badly I needed them. I knew how much my brain was lacking in dopamine and endorphins and certain other neurotransmitters. And once I got hooked on drugs, yeah, I finally felt where that I belonged because I needed certain combinations and certain people that I've met and experiences and formative years. And you do drugs and you have bonding experiences with people and you're hanging out with drug dealers, smoking weed and just hanging out and shit, just living and just tripping out, laying on a Burger King fucking roof, smoking meth and just staring off into the fucking moon and shit, and being with Michael and Mary Lynn and shit. She overdosed and I saw him care for his girlfriend, and then she overdosed another time and I was freaking out much like him to save her life because I really thought she was going to die. And on the street, the reason why it all got fucked up is because I stopped helping out. I stopped dumpster diving. I stopped bringing food over. I started eating a bunch of food, not getting money, and being afraid of being out because of the cops and shit. And it became very annoying. It became a mooch. And I remember one night flipping out, crying about my Aunt Debbie or something. I was like, "I'm liable to freak out." He's like, "What the fuck? You don't want to sleep? You don't have. I don't have to let you sleep here in my fucking place." And I'm like, "Sorry about that shit." And I made a mistake. He's like, "Maybe in the future with other people, you learn how to be a human being." And he was right. I eventually did. And I needed to break off and go to MUSC Hospital from the street after I realized my situation was done there. But this is another long loop of my story, and it's called DissoTV, Brain Damage and Street Life. Oop, ba, ba, ba.